Years ago, at a religious service, I heard a reading of the most powerful poem I've ever encountered on the subject of grief. The poem is called Epitaph and was written by the poet Merritt Malloy back in the 1980s. And what stuck with me is that it's written from the first-person perspective of a loved one who's dying, the soon-to-be-gone narrator imploring mourners to move forward through compassion for and connection with others who are still living. The poem's ending has always stayed with me. When all that's left of me is love, give me away. The idea of giving a voice to the departed, or even the nearly departed, is what's at the heart of the poem's power. And that got me thinking, in today's world, with there being so much talk of artificial intelligence and its potential to improve our lives, can people use AI to give voice to the dead? Are there AI-savvy people taking recordings of their dead relatives' voices and having them speak once again? Could I do it, using tapes of one of my dearly departed loved ones? The answer, not surprisingly, is yes. You're about to meet someone who's using the leading edge of AI technology to find audio comfort in the wake of his family's loss. And you may be surprised, or even a little scared, by how easy it is to do. I'm David Peterkovsky, and this is Pop Comforts, a podcast series that explores the unexpected corners of popular culture that bring us comfort. Andy O'Donnell is a cybersecurity analyst based in Montgomery, Alabama. Back in 2020, his father, Edward, passed away from Alzheimer's disease after a 3-year battle.
My dad he was a great guy. He worked for the Veterans Administration for about 35 years, and he worked with the Indian tribes and whatnot. And he also worked in the hospital administration, like shutting down any of the rest homes that were poorly run. He was kind of responsible for managing those and helping them to get better or just closing them down altogether. So he had a degree in clinical social work. And again, he worked for the government for a really long time. But he was just an all-around great guy, very charitable, and just a great dad. And he developed Alzheimer's. It kind of just came on gradually, and we didn't really even know, what was happening until he was finally diagnosed. And by the time he was diagnosed, he had really kind of gotten to the point where he didn't even really feel like our dad, if that kind of makes any sense. Like he just didn't act the same, or it was kind of like a shadow of his former self.
Mm-hmm. How old was he when he was diagnosed?
He was, I think, 83. He passed away when he was 86. And, it was a slow kind of gradual cognitive and, physical decline. So it's, definitely hard to watch. And I don't wish that on anyone for sure.
As a father of 7 with a demanding job, Edward kept plenty busy between his work and his family.
He was definitely stretched then, and he traveled a lot for his work, which was hard. And he was definitely you got to be very thrifty when you got 6 kids. One of the things I remember he used to do that we laugh about now is he would buy powdered milk, and he would put water in it and kind of stretch it out throughout the week until there was like nothing but just hazy water. So I didn't even know what real milk was until I went to college, and I was like, this stuff is the best. What is this? But, he had to make ends meet. A lot of kids, we eat a lot, so.
Yeah. And at what point did you think about using AI in some way to preserve his memory?
Well, I've kind of been following the AI technology space because that's just one of my hobbies, one of my interests. And I had learned about all these different kind of startups that were doing voice cloning. And, they were doing some silly stuff like taking like SpongeBob or, actors' voices and cloning them. And I had seen where I think a company called 11 Labs was letting you clone your own voice from samples. And I just kind of had the idea, well, I've got a video that I play when I kind of miss my dad's voice. And, I kept it on my phone for years. It's just like a 3-minute clip of him telling a story to my daughter. And I'm like, well, I've got his voice. I've got audio sample. I can, try to upload it and see what happens. So I went through the process. It was all done on my phone, really. Uploaded his voice sample, and a few minutes later, they were done processing it. They fire up a little window where you can enter text you want the voice to speak, and then, you basically just submit it, and then it sends you an audio file with what you typed. And so I thought it would be all computer sounding, but I was just astonished at the quality of the voice and how it, got all of his little nuances right. His, vocal timbre and all that stuff was just perfectly replicated. I can't imagine how that technology is possible, but it was amazing.
And you had this from you said 3 minutes of audio?
Yeah, I had 3 minutes of audio where my daughter had taken a little video camera and had filmed him telling a story from his youth.
Well, when I was growing up, I had a small dog who could run like the wind. And he liked to follow me to baseball games in our small little town called Fowlcroft.
It's kind of interesting with Alzheimer's folks. Some of the last things to go are their earliest memories. So I think my daughter kind of wanted to capture some of his funny stories. And she had recorded this probably about a year or so before he passed. And that's what I used to upload to the service.
And was it always his voice that you were thinking of working with?
Yeah, he just had such a comforting voice, and I just didn't want to forget it. And I just thought of, all the possible things you could do with it. Like, if someday I have grandkids, they would never know what their grandfather sounded like. But with this technology, I could take it and have him read like a bedtime story to them just by putting it in the text to speech and saving the file, So I think that kind of thing is a really neat thing to be able to do. Because my grandmother on my dad's side, she passed away before I was even born. So I never got to meet her. And that was long before there was any video cameras or anything available. So I'd never heard her speak or saw her or anything. I've seen maybe 2 or 3 snapshots of her, but that's it. So with everything we have nowadays, you can really preserve memories a lot easier.
Yeah. So you went ahead and created this voice clone of your father's voice, which might sound scary or even questionable to those who don't understand what that means. Can you walk through the steps you went through in order to create this facsimile?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I did was I had to find the video first. I downloaded it off of Facebook. There was like a online Facebook downloading tool that I used. And then I took the file, since I didn't need the video from it, I converted it to an MP3 file using another just online tool or app that I found. And then I went to the website where I think it's 11 Labs, the name of the website. And I uploaded that file, and they have what they call instant voice cloning. And that's what I chose. And I think I had to pay like $1 or something for the process to go. But basically it created similar to like a font almost, where you somehow manipulate that sample into a voice that you can use to convert text, anything you type, into speech. And you can even change the inflection or exaggeration by just moving little sliders around to make it more or less exaggerated. And I found that I could dial in kind of how he sounded by manipulating those little controls that they give you. And I had him read the Lord's Prayer, and it sounded just like him.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
I did a couple other things as well. I had him read kind of a note to my sister about how proud he was of us for taking care of, our mother. And I don't know what made me do that, but I wrote it out, and then hearing him say it, it was just like he was really saying it, and it really touched my sister and myself both, just hearing it, even though we know we'd, typed it all in, but it just had some kind of value hearing it from him. And I think it's probably really good for the grief process for us, to be able to do something like that. And I, of course I didn't do it surreptitiously. I told my sister, listen, I made this kind of fake voicemail with what sounds like Dad's voice, just so you know. And, she listened to it and she told me she cried for like 5 minutes, but it was good. It's a good cry.
And do you recall how you felt when you first heard his voice in this way?
Oh, I just, I could not believe it. I couldn't fathom, because I've messed with technology for years and I've heard all kinds of computerized voices and nothing sounded realistic. So for it to capture all of his cadence and everything, it was really amazing.
Was it lacking in any way?
It wasn't. And because I guess he had such a kind of a measured voice, such a calming voice, that he didn't have a lot of fluctuation. I mean, he's not monotone by any means, but I think it may have just been an easier voice to clone, perhaps, because there wasn't a lot of just, wild inflections or something to deal with.
And I know you have a large family. Were there any members of the family who were maybe not so on board with the idea of you doing this?
Oh, no, they were absolutely all about it. They loved it. I even shared it with my mother, who, she's older and, she kind of understood the technology. I wouldn't say she completely understood what was going on, but enough to know that it wasn't, Dad's voice. Obviously, it's a facsimile. But yes, she really appreciated it. And I was actually a project I'm working on now is take a lot of the poems my dad wrote to my mom throughout the years. And I want to try to build like an audio collection of those where his voice is reading them to her. And I think that would be comforting for her.
That would be amazing, I would think. So you're really bringing this thing to life as well as you can at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, obviously, I can see that there could be malicious types of uses for this technology, and I recognize that. But I think it definitely has helped us in the grief process to be able to just know that I can hear his voice whenever I want to, really, because as long as I'm subscribed to that service and paying whatever the monthly fee is, I think it's like $1 or something, and I can have that voice say anything I want. And, we've thought of other things like my mom, he used to lead the rosary for us in the car, when we're driving long distances, and he would read the rosary. And I'm like, well, that should be easy to put that together because it's a very repetitive prayer. And so that's another project that I was thinking of working on so that my mom could kind of virtually say the rosary with my dad still.
Wow. And I know you mentioned this earlier. You had your father's clone voice recite the Lord's Prayer. Was that something that he recited regularly in his life?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We would do it every morning, like after breakfast. My parents would, they would read kind of this reflections journal thing that they had. And he would say the, Lord's Prayer after that. It was kind of a regular thing for us, for sure.
Andy posted his step-by-step tutorial on voice cloning on the website Reddit. And with concerns over misuse becoming an increasingly big part of any discussion on AI technology, Andy says he braced himself for the possibility of negative feedback on the voice cloning tutorial he'd posted.
I guess I thought that maybe some people might think it was like disrespectful or some kind of like grief crutch or something, but really I was really surprised that there was, a lot of positive response, especially given where I posted it, which is on Reddit, which isn't always known for its community of positivity, I'll say, But yeah, I was very pleased to see that. And I encouraged other people to, I wrote the entire process out of what I did so that maybe others could give it a try if they wanted to. But a lot of people commented, they want to do it, but they're just not quite ready yet. They're not that far along in their grief process. And I probably wouldn't have been ready to do it without some time passing as well. I mean, before I tried it was probably about 2 years since he passed. So I definitely wouldn't have gone immediately and done that. So I understand what people are saying about that.
Mm-hmm. So you don't wrestle at all with ethical questions when it comes to using AI in this way?
Not if it's used in a positive way to help someone deal with grief. There's people out there that probably are just, cringing from the idea of that. But again, I think everybody has their own opinion on it. And I think as long as it's not hurting anyone or you're not like using it to prank relatives or something, like your relatives calling out from beyond the grave, then, I could see people doing that and it being terrible. But I think as long as you're using it for good, then I don't see an issue with it.
Yeah. And as long as you're transparent about how it was made.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see a problem with it.
I really think that everybody grieves in their own way. I couldn't explain why it felt good to me to hear stuff that I had just like typed for him to say, but it was soothing. And I think anything that's helpful and not destructive, and as long as everybody knows what's happening, under the hood, it's not some strange paranormal thing or something. I think it's helpful. And I think there's going to be more things like this. I could see this kind of voice, replacing like a Siri or a Alexa, where, you could put your relative's voice. Like my mom would probably love if I replaced Alexa with my dad's voice, just because I think she'd get a kick out of that. And as she gets older and has more cognitive decline, I think it would be comforting.
I would think if your dad was a know-it-all, having him be the replacement voice for Siri
Right.
would be a perfect fit.
Exactly. Have to turn the snark level up to 9 for my dad.
As it turns out, Andy's interest in AI extends well beyond his experiments in resurrecting his father's voice, encompassing everything from his education to his extracurricular work as a novelist. So, I understand you're actually in the midst of getting a master's degree in artificial intelligence, and I'm wondering, was this experiment an outgrowth of your studies, or was it the other way around, where cloning your dad's voice got you thinking it would be a great thing to study personally and professionally?
Honestly, no, it was more of a work-related thing. I'm going to be helping out with some artificial intelligence stuff at work, and there was an opportunity to join a master's program that was paid for by my work, so I was more taking advantage of that. But I have a really keen interest in artificial intelligence. I've written several novels on kind of dystopian future sci-fi stuff related to artificial intelligence. And honestly, I probably wouldn't have written any books if it wasn't for my dad passing, because I feel like he was a great writer, but we don't have many examples of his writing other than the poems he wrote for my mom. And I wanted to leave something behind for my kids, just some kind of digital legacy or something. So that's what kind of made me decide to write novels. And that just happens to be the topic that I'm writing about currently.
Maybe you can figure out a way for your dad to co-author a book with you.
Right. Honestly, I thought about having him do like an audiobook, like reading one of my books or something like that. But I don't know if they allow that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm sure there's all kinds of legal dilemmas of that right now. But yeah, I thought that was a neat idea, because he has just a wonderful voice. And I think he could have done, radio, stuff like that if he had chose that career path, for sure.
Uh-huh. In terms of the content, could you find a way to use like old emails from your dad or other examples of his writing to make AI-generated scripts of things that he could then say in his cloned voice?
I definitely think I could. Like I said, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of examples of what he wrote. He wasn't really into email or texting or anything, but we did have the poem collection that that we've kind of put together from the poems that he gave my mom over the years. And that's definitely something, I want to use the cloned voice to read those, because I think it would mean a lot to my mother.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking even like letters or, something.
Yeah. I wish we had more of his content, because unfortunately it just was not captured. I mean, we've gone through everything, like speeches he wrote for work and things. We can't find those, unfortunately. So.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to share something that I took the liberty of tweaking a bit on your behalf. I noticed that the Lord's Prayer file and the file you used to create the voice in the first place had a lot of background hiss. So I ran them through an AI tool that I use in podcasting to enhance audio.
Okay.
I wanted to share with you what I think is a cleaner, crisper version of your father's voice.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
There it is.
That is much better. That's much better quality. I appreciate that. Love for you to send that to me. And one thing I noticed on his voice, like that I hadn't really paid attention to before, is that you can really hear kind of his Irish roots in a lot of the way he pronounces things. And I had never really noticed that before, but just kind of focusing on it now, I can hear definitely his Irish heritage in his voice. which I think is interesting.
Uh-huh. And also, as someone who grew up in the Mid-Atlantic area, I hear a little bit of what I think is a Mid-Atlantic accent, but...
Yeah, we kind of have that middle of nowhere accent. He was raised in kind of Philadelphia area.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got a lot of that background for sure.
Yeah, I did the other piece as well, the original one. I can play a little bit of that, and I'll send both of these to you.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd appreciate that.
Let's see.
Well, when I was growing up, I had a small dog who could run like the wind. And he liked to follow me to baseball games in our small little town called Fowlcroft. And he followed me everywhere.
So, yeah.
That's great. That was... I wish, we could have heard more of his stories. And I'm so glad that my daughter had the forethought to capture that, because that's really the only thing we have of him speaking, other than a few phone clips here and there. But yeah, we're just blessed that she thought to do that.
It's the 3 minutes I keep on giving.
Yeah, it really is. We wouldn't, and that he was speaking alone too, because I don't know how easy it is for the AI to like separate people's voices if other people are talking, at the same time. So just that he was speaking alone and she was just kind of quietly listening really, I think, helped with the quality of what it was able to generate.
Mm-hmm, for sure. So one last question for you, and it's a bigger picture one. Do you envision a time where this type of thing will become more prevalent and easier to generate and useful for people who are dealing with the loss of a loved one?
I think it will. I think there's even going to be services providing this. I could imagine like funeral homes kind of doing this for people and, producing like a message to loved ones or something that is played at a funeral. I mean, I don't think that's beyond the realm of possibility. Whether people would think that's in good taste or not is a matter of opinion, but I think as more and more of this is put out there, I think the boundaries are going to kind of change for people. So I could see a whole kind of industry springing up around this technology used in the grief process.
I could too, and I think we're inching our way toward it.
Right.
Well, Andy, I want to thank you for giving voice, so to speak, to the idea of voice cloning through AI to help comfort people in mourning and help keep the memories of loved ones alive after they're gone. This has been really interesting and certainly thought-provoking. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for putting this out there. I appreciate the discussion about it. I hope that it helps other people consider the possibility of, cloning their deceased loved one's voice to provide comfort to themselves or, other family members. But thanks for having me.
You bet.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, Andy O'Donnell makes a compelling case for using AI voice cloning technology to commemorate a lost loved one. And it's nice to imagine how he and his siblings, and his mother, can take comfort in hearing Edward's voice anew. But I couldn't help wondering, what kind of effect might it have on me? Being an inveterate audio tinkerer and someone who's prone to nostalgia, I thought I'd give voice cloning a try as well. Using the same software from 11 Labs that Andy used, I uploaded a recording of my late grandfather Morris, who my brother interviewed on audio cassette way back in 1988, just a few months before my grandfather passed away at the age of 84. Grandpa Morris was an immigrant who came to the U.S. from Poland as a teenager, and here's a clip of him describing the journey he took to get to America.
We left Lodz, Poland, in the month of May 1920, in the beginning of the month of May. And we took the train from Lodz to Warsaw.
Now, here's that clip upgraded a bit, which I did by using the audio-enhancing tool I'd also used to brighten up the voice of Andy's father.
We left Lodz, Poland, in the month of May 1920, in the beginning of the month of May. And we took the train from Lodz to Warsaw.
And lastly, here's my Grandpa Morris, more than 35 years after his death, speaking, so to speak, about being part of these newfangled AI shenanigans.
David, I don't know what a podcast is, but I am happy to be a part of it. Thank you for including me in this experiment.
While I know it's not real, and in fact I'm the one who wrote out his script, I was truly blown away the first time I played that clip, and I understood exactly how Andy must have felt the first time he heard his father speaking to him. Like Andy, I also recognize the potential benefits of having these voices from the past, if used responsibly and openly, and as nothing more than recreations and commemorations, available to those who yearn to hear them. So let's leave the discussion right there for now. And, with an assist from his son Andy, let's let the late Edward O'Donnell have the last word.
If I were alive today and understood this technology, I would probably be happy that my son has gained some kind of solace from hearing my voice again. I don't think there is any harm in that. I think Merritt Malloy said it best. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away.
I'm gonna sit right down and write myself a letter and make believe it came from you. I'm gonna write words oh so sweet, they're gonna knock me off my feet.
Pop Comforts is a production of me, David Peterkovsky. My thanks to Andy O'Donnell for sharing the story of his late father Edward and his adventures in voice cloning. In the show notes, I've included a link to his Amazon page if you want to check out his fiction writing. I've also included a link to the poem Epitaph, written by Merritt Malloy. Music for this episode was provided by Chris Zabriskie, Chad Crouch, and Alexis and the Samurai. You can find the Pop Comforts webpage on Medium.com, specifically at popcomfortspodcast.medium.com. And be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. On the next episode of Pop Comforts, the story of how a relaxing, non-alcoholic beverage from the South Pacific is gaining recognition far beyond the islands. The soothing herbal drink known as kava, next time on Pop Comforts. Until then, thanks for listening.